Hey everyone, welcome to the KE report and a company update from Kootenay Silver, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol KTN, and now on the OTCQX under the symbol KOOYF, chatting with Jim McDonald, President and CEO of Kootenay Silver. We're going to be talking drill results, the last batch that was released February 12th. The company, as I mentioned, now also trading on the OTCQX that was released March 12th. And we're going to look ahead to upcoming news flow, especially Maiden Resource Estimate, all at this Columba project in Mexico. Jim, let's talk about these most recent drill results. Again, February 12th, there are 11 holes released. These holes tested the F and the I veins, as well as a new target, La Preciosa. Let's start with that new target. We've talked so much about all these other veins, and we'll get back to that. But La Preciosa, what did you find and what drew you to drill this target?
Yeah, so we keep finding new structures and targets to drill on the project. Backing up, just because there's been so little erosion here, we're at the very top edge of this vein and silver system, so it is barely exposed. And so what you're seeing at surface are pretty, in many cases, pretty subtle indications of structure and vein at depth, except where you're in your erosional low points where veins are actually exposed. So, but much of the property, your veins are not exposed, but you can find your structures. So we keep finding these interesting structures which show up as these breccia zones. This is broken rock that's typically silicified, it'll have some indication of metal with it. It'll have maybe a little bit of veining of calcite or core, and maybe weakly anomalous in. Yeah, usually not in silver. You might have a little bit of grade show up, but you might have a little. What we're finding is that zinc's a pretty good indicator on these structures. So Preciosa is one of those. It's really nice, wide breccia structure at surface. Strike length, I think, was about 400 or 500 meters of exposure on it at a minimum, and it was weakly anomalous in silver, maybe only about 5 grams, if I remember right. It's in the news release what the numbers are exactly. So we just wanted to see if it was going to open up into a vein system, and it is opening up into a nice vein breccia. Yeah, we put about 3 holes into that, and what we found was just typical of what we see across the property. Up at the high elevation, you have very little silver value, but as we got deeper and then again deeper, the silver values are picking up from at surface effectively background numbers of slightly anomalous to then the first cut underneath it, which was less than 100 meters down, was something in the order of 50, 60 grams, and then cut down a little deeper again, increasing to 80 grams and still wide open. So what we see there is we need to go back, and our next cut will be about 100 meters deeper again. And what we see in other veins on the project, like the D vein, for example, when you're at your higher elevations at surface, your silver values are literally down to less than 5 grams per ton. And from that level, you drill down about 100 meters deep, vertically deeper, and you're into that fabulous kilogram type hits that we get. So really important to drill these subtle things because they can quickly open up into high grade mineralized shoots in well-developed veins at depth. And Preciosa looks like it's turning into one of those. So now we just put a few holes in to see, test the thesis to see if it was opening up into a nice structure, and that's what it's doing so far. So we will be going back in the next several weeks here with a couple more holes to do a deeper cut again. And hopefully that cut gets into what's a nice brand new high grade zone. So really exciting. We keep finding these. The more work we do on the surface, we keep identifying these structures, and they're all targets. So there's lots of drill targets we haven't even gotten to yet outside of the main drilled areas that we were concentrating on in the last 20,000 meters of drilling.
Yeah, Jim, it's nice to see you guys continue to find more at this Columba project and find more structures where you can then get down like you have on the D vein and show there's that eventual line in the sand there as far as the altitude of where the higher grade kilo plus materials start showing up. And we've talked about a lot of veins on this property before. So for people listening in, it's easy to maybe get a little turned around. We've talked a lot about the D vein in the past. We've talked about the B vein and the parallel vein, the B2 vein. Now we're talking again about the F vein, which has had a lot of the historic work, and the I vein in this release from February the 12th. Talk to us about some of the additional information you learned at the F vein and at the I vein.
Yeah, great hit on the F vein. It was kind of an infill hole in a really large gap we had that was 300 meters between holes at that level, or approximately 300 meters. And we had no information there at all. Drilled in and got a really nice wide intercept of medium grade and with a high grade core of good width as well. So really great. Actually on average a width in grade, probably above average for that vein, in fact, which it bodes well too as when we get to the infill stage for that particular vein. Then, so that's the historic vein F. And that's the one that's got the shaft went down 200 meters and 6 levels put off of it. And almost coming off that vein at almost a 90-degree angle is what we call the I vein. And it had some small production historically on it and some high grades reported. And we've got a handful of holes across it now, and we've hit in various places some real high grades. Narrow on that particular structure, but getting into 1, 2 kilogram plus type material. And that's what we hit on just some step out drilling along that structure. We need to do a lot more drilling there, but we wanted to see if it was continuing, and it certainly does. And a very interesting intercept in the one hole because we've hit an area that looks like it's quite different than what we see elsewhere. We don't know what to expect from it yet, but very large, strong sericite quartz alteration zone. Not really vein per se, more of a replacement style thing associated with the breccia we see at surface. So could that be sort of the bulk tonnage type target? We don't know yet. But it had the vein within it and had quite a high grade hit within the vein structure. So that still remains the same target, but geologically, it's just getting more complicated. We're seeing these things that are indicating we got multiple different events happening on the project, multiple different pulses of mineralization, and it's all good news to us geologically because that's what you want to see. You want to see these things that are complicated, had a lot of fluid pumped through them at different times, and it gives you more opportunity for different ore bodies to be discovered and even different types of ore bodies in the same project. So quite exciting. No eye-popping numbers like we've seen out of some other veins, but quite important results.
Jim, let's look ahead then in terms of future news. Look, we've talked a lot about a maiden resource upcoming for the company. Last time you were on, you said it could possibly come at the end of Q1. Give us a lay of the land here. What's coming, what we could expect from that maiden resource, and where it will be focused when you understand all these different veins that you've drilled.
Yeah, so we've drilled now over 50,000 meters. The 20,000 meter program that we began last year is complete. And we've got over 40 holes on the F vein, at least that kind of number on the D vein. Then on that B vein corridor, where there's actually 3 different veins that we're seeing, is reasonably drilled as well. So those areas will form the bulk of what we report on a maiden resource. And I was saying we were shooting for end of Q1. That was a bit aggressive because we just finished up to 20,000 meters and still waiting on assays from that 20,000 meters to come in, and which will go into the maiden resource estimate. So if we get them in reasonably short notice here, potentially we could be looking at a maiden resource close to the end of April. It'll be a little bit impacted by availability of the QP that we've had to hire the third-party consultants who do the estimate. We can get a relatively quick turnaround once we have assays because we've been building our vein model as we go. And that's one of the big lags in time required to be able to do an estimate. You need your geologic models done. And we're working on those as we go. We adjust them as we go. And so that won't take all that much more time to get them refined and finalized. Probably the biggest unknown for us at the moment is just the how quickly the QP can get going and because they're a third party consultant, so they may be in the middle of another job. We might have to wait for them to finish, but fingers crossed, we'll be very close to the end of April.
Well, Jim, I just want to take a step back because this is not your first rodeo, and this is not Kootenay Silver's first resource they're putting out. You've had other projects, and you still have them, La Negra, Promontorio, La Cigarra, where you've done a lot of drilling and come out with resources. But Columba, to me, I've been following the story for a long time, and Columba really seems like the one where you've locked into this both higher grade material, but also over wider intercepts. So maybe talk about your initial expectations for the resource, just from the sense of this seems to be the kind of project, Jim, that you can really mass up some resources quickly and in a shorter time frame than you've done on the other projects.
Well, yes, and what you're talking about in the case of Columba is high quality ounces. So you get these classic high grade. Now, grade is one thing, and width of mineralization is another thing, and they added together, they result in the quality of your ounce. So it's for the layman, it's a complicated thing, but you're looking for high margin ounces, and high grade is always the best. Most deposits, the vein deposits, are pretty narrow in Mexico and generally around the world. And a lot of the mines in Mexico are high grade mines will be mining 1 to 2 meter wide veins, but quite high grade. So when you start to see widths that are 5 to 20 or 30 meters true width, and in some cases, some of our holes are nearly 50 meters true width. Some of those hits that we released this past program, that's pretty exciting for us because we've got great grades and we've got incredible widths. So when those two combine, you've got the potential for real low cost, high margin type ounces. And so that's really exciting. And we've said all along when coming out with a maiden resource, we want to get pretty close to that 50 million mark on our starter resource. That's a real good start. And so that's what we're shooting for. And I don't know exactly what it'll come out at yet, but we're getting close to being able to get that number out. With regards to the other resources that we have, there's the three, La Negra, Promontorio, and La Cigarra. So with these strong silver prices that we're seeing right now, La Negra and La Cigarra start to look pretty interesting. And we think we're about to break out into a next level for silver price on the upside here. And those two projects deserve to be advanced at that time. And we've prepped them, as we've talked about many times before, to be ready to move. The next logical steps would just to be do some in-house scoping studies, see what those numbers look like on paper, and then if warranted, start moving them ahead towards PEA type studies. But that's not on the books yet, but that's in the longer term plan for us. Yeah, and those projects are ready to move. And they certainly give us a lot of leverage to the silver price because we've got an awful lot of ounces in the ground already outside of what Columba is.
Okay, so those other projects, an optionality play, right? You can advance them, de-risk them further in a higher silver price and probably when you have more money as well. But right now, the focus still on Columba. Yes, you're moving to this maiden resource, but Columba still is largely an exploration play for the company, I think, because you are still fairly early on in exploring this project. What will be the strategy here throughout this year in terms of further exploration? Will it be to further focus on wherever these higher grade areas are in that main resource, or will it be continuing to test out new areas, looking at new discoveries?
It'll be some of both because these mineralized zones that we've drilled so far are still wide open. They're all still wide open. So whatever the maiden resource comes out as, it's wide open resource. Hasn't been closed off even on the areas that are drilled. And then in addition to that, you've got the areas we have drilled with great results, like 6 meters or 2 kilos that have not yet been followed up. And then all these other structures that we're doing some testing on at the moment, but with all these other structures with no drilling on them at all. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here for more discoveries and increasing whatever we have at the moment. And so the 2025 plan after this maiden resource will be get back to drilling and expanding on what we've got and building it. So it'll be two parts. One part's very straightforward, just continue stepping out from the zones we already have and find the ends of them. We haven't even done that yet. Then the other part is, okay, we've got good hits already, step out from them, see if we got to build some size on them. And then there's the pure exploration targets. So when you characterize it, Corey, as an exploration project, still, it very much is. It'd be a more advanced exploration project because we do have a discovery on our hands and underway. But there's a lot of exploration to do here, and therefore a lot of upside on this project.
Yeah, Jim, it's nice to see you got a lot of exploration, new targets, but you also have the ability to follow up on the discoveries already made, and we'll be excited to look forward ahead to the upcoming resource as well. Now, a lot of people wonder what kind of cash do you have to keep the exploration going, and do you have enough to get through that maiden resource?
Oh yeah, we definitely have enough for the maiden resource. We got just about under 3 million Canadian. So we're well situated there. We're not under any immediate pressure. Obviously, we will need to finance because the next round of drilling, we're going to want to do at least another 20,000 meters or more and keep rolling. So we're really excited to get back to that too, as well.
All right. There's the update from Kootenay Silver and Jim McDonald, President and CEO. If any of you have any follow-up questions for Jim, please email us. We'll get Jim to address those on future calls. And if you want to read over the recent news that we just discussed, click the link in the show notes to visit the Kootenay Silver website. Jim, thank you very much for the update today.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Shad.